I'm just gonna outright lie to you guys. I don't want to call this video the 19 favorites of 2020. I just don't. Hey guys, it's Christy Lewis from Dostoevsky in Space, and today I'm here with my 20 favorites from 2020, and let's just jump right in. These aren't in any real sort of order. I really enjoyed them all for different reasons, so it would be pointless to try and tier rank them. So first we have The Power and the Glory by Graham Greene. I loved this book. I did a dedicated review of it. This is about a priest in Mexico during the Red Shirt Revolution. There's a lot of government persecution going on, and he has not been a good priest up until this point, but the persecution makes him into kind of a different person. It's really interesting to see his transformation, and I really loved it. I loved the ending. I thought the writing was beautiful. I need to read more Graham Greene. Next I want to talk about Piranesi by Suzanna Clarke, and I enjoyed this one so much that I did film a review of it, but I haven't put the review up yet. I loved Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, so I grabbed this one as soon as I could. I actually paid for it on Audible. I'd never used Audible before, but I got it on there because I couldn't get it anywhere else on audiobook, and it's good physical and audibly. I read it in one night. It was a blast. Next, we have Romantic Outlaws by Charlotte Gordon. I read this with Kate Howe and several other wonderful ladies, and we had a Zoom discussion on it, and it was one of my favorite experiences as well as one of my favorite books of the year. I haven't read very many biographies, and this dual biography of Mary Wollstonecraft and her daughter Mary Shelley was just so enlightening and wonderful. It was recommended by Jennifer Brooks, and that's kind of why we did this read-along, and it was such a great idea. We did it for Nonfiction November. I talked about it a lot in the very beginning of this wrap-up, so if you want to hear my thoughts more in depth on that, check that out. Man's Search for Meaning. I absolutely loved this book. I haven't really gone through the flags yet, even though it totally deserves its own breakdown. Like, this deserves to have its own like dedicated video. It's that wonderful. This is an alternative to Freud. It's got quotes from Dostoevsky in it, which makes it of course wonderful. It's all about the author's experiences in Auschwitz. He's a psychiatrist, and he basically spends his life trying to keep people from committing suicide. He had to work really hard to do that in the camps, and he was just counseling people all the time, trying to keep them from committing suicide. It's dark in that way, but it's about man's search for meaning. So it's also not dark. It's about trying to live up to your suffering and make a good life out of it. And it's really, really wonderful. I should have some quotes for you, but I don't because I'm lame. That's probably one of my top 10, not just my top 20 from the year. It might even be in my top 5. I really loved it that much. I got this copy from Noah at Everyone Who Reads It Must Converse. I read it with some friends of mine, and we had a video discussion from friends all over the country, and it was definitely one of my favorite things that I read this year and one of my favorite reading experiences, so I highly recommend that one. Next we have Rhythm of War! Where is it? Right here! As you can see, I took a lot of notes. I'm ashamed to say I haven't put out any further thoughts about it yet on my channel. I absolutely loved it. Definitely one of my favorites of the year. We get lots of in that book, so you know, it's my fave. I don't want to say anything that would spoil you, so don't worry, I'm not going to. And we also have One Piece by Eiichiro Oda, volumes 1 and 2. I read this because of Una from the Codex Cantina and Leslie at the Nerdy Narrative. They were raving about it. I decided I had to try it, and I'm so glad that I did. It's been like a go-to relaxing type read for me because I can focus on it really easily. There's a lot of really fun action. There's some like drawing tutorials in there. It's about a kid who wants to be a pirate, but like not the pillaging and burning kind, like the good kind that goes searching for lost treasure. And his adventures building a crew is where I'm at so far. It's just fun. It's just fun. It's a good relaxing read. I'm really enjoying it. Next, I really enjoyed rereading the series of Unfortunate Events this year. I didn't finish the entire series, but I was reading them along with the TV show. Next, we have The Consolation of Philosophy. This is by Boethius. I read this for my Lent TBR. I did a review of it. I'll put it up here. Loved it. It's about Boethius, who is sitting in his cell about to be executed by whoever was in charge at the time. He was currently in exile, and he's arguing with philosophy about why he's depressed, and philosophy is arguing back with him and telling him why he should be happier about his life. And it's really wonderful. I did enjoy it a lot. Check out the video if you want to know more. Next we have 101 Dalmatians by Dodi Smith. I read this for the Boo to You Readathon that was put on by Emma, the Bookish Princess. I loved this. It was so cute. It's written from the perspective of the dogs who talk about their pets, the humans, the whole time. It has so much from the movie. It has the exact same tone as the movie, and there's a few things in there that are missing from the movie. So if you enjoy the movie, you probably will enjoy the book a lot. This was on Emma's 2020 favorites as well. Next we have The Night Before Christmas by Nikolai Gogol. This is a short story that I read with the Codex Cantina for A Very Russian Christmas. This was my favorite story of like the 7 stories that we read, and it's all about the devil kind of wreaking havoc in this village called Dekanka, and this is in Little Russia, so I think that means like what's currently Ukraine. And the characters are wacky. The devil's like trying to like ruin their life, only he doesn't reckon on the strength of the very godly blacksmith who is on a mission to make the village beauty fall in love with him. And it's just a wild good time. There's witches, there's devils, there's a visit with the Tsarina. It's like a fairy tale. It was like happy, but also very funny and satirical, and I love it. I love another story on here by Gogol that I'll talk about in a minute. I cannot wait to read Dead Souls with Codex Cantina this year. So let's talk about the other Gogol story I read and loved this year, which is The Overcoat. This one is about a man who saves up all his money and spends all of it on this beautiful overcoat that he needs because he's just shivering in his old one and he really needs to buy a new one. So he buys it and it's beautiful and everyone's envious of it, and then it gets stolen. And if you want to find out what happens, read the story. It's so good. The ending is creepy. I didn't really expect the ending. Apparently a lot of Russian stories, they involve kind of like folkloric elements that you just don't expect. It's like magical realism. And I love magical realism, apparently. Some of it, not all of it, but that one I loved. Another Russian short story that I read that has elements of magical realism is The Queen of Spades by Pushkin. This is about another young man who is on a quest and he's following the dictates of a legend that he thinks will make him rich. The ending is so good. Of course, there's madness and magic and all kinds of stuff happening, so I highly recommend that one as well. If you want another kind of spooky Russian magical realism read, I need to read more by Pushkin. The other story that I read by him, The Shot, was just like okay. I enjoyed the Codex Cantina's breakdown of it. Next we have The Chronic Illness Devotional by Esther Smith. I read this along with Kate Howe, who organized this buddy read with Naomi from Naomi's Bookshelf, and because we all have chronic illnesses, we decided we should read something that kind of deals with that in a Christian way, and this book was wonderful. It took so many scriptures and it made you see it from a new light that is really applicable to people with chronic illness. A lot of times when I read the Bible in the past, I just felt like there's all these things that I can't do that the Bible tells us to do. And this book really kind of brought it into perspective, and it made me feel better about where I'm at. It talked about stories of people who do have chronic illnesses and how they're living with that, and the author has a chronic illness, so she was writing from her pain, which really makes a difference. This is wonderful. I would highly recommend it to anybody with a chronic illness. Even if you're not a Christian, it like might make you feel better about your situation. So highly recommend it. Check that one out. Next we have the Dostoevsky bio, which is called A Writer in His Time. This is by like Joseph Frankl, I think. I am loving this. I haven't actually finished this. Maybe that should make it an honorable mention, but I'm just gonna put it in here because I did read a lot of it and it really helped me out when I was doing the Crime and Punishment live streams with Danny from Spinelli Speaks. This is one of the first bios that really dragged me in. I haven't read a lot of biographies in my life, but this one is so good. It really drags you in. It tells the story of his life like it's a story, and it tells you about Dostoevsky and his experiences and his struggles, and it's so good, guys. Also, Mr. Harrison's Confessions. This is by Elizabeth Gaskell. This was the book that made me think Elizabeth Gaskell could be a favorite writer of mine. It was so cute. It's about this doctor who goes to a village looking for a job, and he becomes the doctor there, and it's about all the women in the town who are trying to like matchmake him with their daughters, and it's so funny, guys. It's a pretty light read, but it's also told with lots of symbolism and fun things for like the more analytical readers, and it's also written really nicely as well. The prose is very nice. I just had so much fun with this story. I need to read Wives and Daughters. Also, I read Foundation by Isaac Asimov, and I really enjoyed this one. It was not a perfect read by any means. The plot was very kind of episodic. It's actually like, I think 3 short stories bound into one bigger story. It had some problems, especially the fact that like literally there were almost no female characters. And of all the female characters there were, the one, I don't think she had any dialogue and she remained unnamed. So like, it's very golden age sci-fi, I think is what you would call it. It has a lot of the problems that golden age sci-fi has, but it was such an idea focused story. And it was also had great pacing. And I think that like almost changed my view of how I read and what I most enjoy. I always thought of myself as very much of a character reader, but this wasn't about the characters at all. They were almost interchangeable. There was no character personality to the characters in this story. It was all about the ideas, and there was several exchanges of dialogue that felt like courtly dialogue. It's just a frank exchange of ideas, and I loved that. Next, we have Flannery O'Connor's Prayer Journal. This was so good, guys. I read this for my Reading Like Emma the Bookish Princess vlog, which I will link up here. It's my favorite vlog that I've ever done. She had highly recommended it, and I'm so glad that she did, because Flannery O'Connor, she actually might be my favorite author. I just didn't know how to name my channel after her. Flannery in Space, just, it doesn't have the same same ring as Dostoevsky's face. Not to say that I love Dostoevsky any less, but Flannery O'Connor I've read more of, so I can say for sure that I absolutely love her. Everything that she's written that I've read, I've loved. Her novel was a little bit harder for me, Wise Blood, than her short fiction. I love her short fiction so much. They're exactly the same, it's just one is longer and it was harder for me to read horror. It's essentially gothic horror. It's set in the South. I don't like reading a whole novel about that, but I love her short stories so much, and this prayer journal, it was absolutely wonderful. And my next book that I enjoyed is actually more Flannery O'Connor. It's her nonfiction essays or lectures. They're just collected in one volume. It's called Mystery and Manners. And there was some overlap between what she was writing there and what she wrote in her prayer journal, but not much. Her prayer journal was written when she was 21 in college before she got sick, and Mystery and Manners was more influenced by her later in life self and ideas, and it was really interesting to read so much from her this year. I really loved it. I need to read more Flannery O'Connor this coming year. We also have Devil in the Grove by Gilbert King. This is about Justice Thurgood Marshall and his case. It was like a case in Florida. It was like a biography during the time of this case of Thurgood Marshall, and it was really good. It made me very interested in Thurgood Marshall. I loved this one and I would highly recommend it to anybody who's interested in Black history. It's so engaging, great on audiobook. I listened to a lot of it on audiobook, like the first probably quarter of it I read so that I could get my head into it, and then it does read like a story, so you can listen to it and be okay. You know, you might not get some of the finer points or remember it quite as well, but highly recommend that one. My final one is The Best American Short Stories of 2019. This had a lot of diversity, and short stories is how I like to usually read literary fiction. I usually can't take literary fiction in long doses the way I can with Graham Greene. Graham Greene I just get along with real well so far from what I've read. Oh, you know what? I think this was in my best of 2019 video, so maybe I didn't actually read it this year. Dang, but that means this video is the 19 favorites of 2020. I don't know what to do. How do I fix this? I don't want to call this video the 19 favorites of 2020. I just don't. What else did I read? I'm only partway through Washington by Ron Scher now. I can't add that. That could be a runner-up though. I'm enjoying that one a lot. I'm just gonna outright lie to you guys on the thumbnail and be like, this is my 20 favorites of 2020. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a like, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more from me. And of course, the notifications bell off in the corner if you want to be notified every time I make a new video. It'll pop up on your phone. Thanks so much for supporting this channel. Please leave me a comment down below your favorite read of 2020 and why, so that I know why I should check it out. Thanks so much guys. Take care.